Before I start, I'm not trying to tell anybody to stop making art. And if it's something that you're considering pursuing, then honestly, I hope you do. And if you're similar to me and you're transitioning out of that lifestyle, I'm not suggesting that you should just take the skill that you developed around your craft and put it in a shoebox and slide it under the bed and forget about it. That's not good for anybody. In fact, I think it's essential that you don't. If you're like me and you haven't created anything in a while, you get a little weird. So you owe it to yourself and the people around you to keep doing that. What I am talking about is something a little bit more specific. This is for people who took their art seriously, like seriously, and it just never really turned into something that could reliably support their life. And it's not because you didn't care, and it's not because you didn't work hard. Honestly, I've met a ton of artists in my life that would just absolutely blow your mind and could probably outperform a lot of the celebrities that we celebrate. And they're still out there. They're in their bedrooms making masterpieces, and they're down the street at the local coffee shop. But maybe it wasn't your time. Maybe the stars didn't align. Whatever, you know your story. The reasons out there why people don't end up developing big, successful careers with their art are just endless. Honestly, just life is complicated. But eventually we reach a point where you feel like you kind of have to make a choice between the continuation of this pursuit or developing a life that's a little bit more stable. Because honestly, art isn't the only thing that's valuable in the world. I mean, you might want a family. Even just stability alone is pretty awesome. What took me a long time to notice is that this post-dream pursuit life isn't empty. And it can feel that way. When you've dedicated your entire life to one thing, it's really hard to then suddenly not be doing that. And to not identify with that anymore. It really is kind of like a death of a version of yourself. But that's just the way it might feel. It's not true. This post-transition life isn't empty, it's just developed. But that development doesn't translate cleanly into modern life. So today I want to talk about one of those tools that built that inner development, because it probably kept you coherent for a really long time, and now it might kind of quietly be slowing you down. And that's introspection. Introspection gets talked about like it's a little indulgent, like you're just kind of staring at the middle distance for fun. But for artists, I don't think it was indulgence. I think it was a stabilizing technology. It's how you stayed sane. It's how you remained sensitive without being brittle. And it's how you took suffering and transformed it into something that you could hold or sing or show or share with somebody. I like to think of it kind of like an emotional exorcism. But that introspection is how artists develop this distinct trait, which is this ability to see life from a non-obvious angle and to discover meaning in places where other people might just see kind of the mundane noise of the world. And that's an awesome skill. It just doesn't come with a paycheck attached, and that's a little inconvenient. But here's the weird flip. One of the skills that artists develop really well is this ability to think in concepts. Your mind moves through layers of subtext and context, and you find the thing beneath the thing, beneath that thing, and with that you can kind of craft internally before you even touch a tool, which is awesome. And it's what makes you good at art. And it might be what makes you bad at momentum. Because when you can look at one situation and see 10 possible paths, then certainty becomes kind of elusive. So instead of choosing, you might want to explore. Instead of committing to something, you might want to just test. And from the outside, people seem to look at that as like a lack of commitment. But it doesn't feel like that inside. It doesn't feel like flakiness. It feels like, it just feels like caution. It just feels like, I'm not convinced that this is the best way to do this. Or I'm not sure I clearly understand what the cost of this is going to be. So you might start avoiding the wrong choice in the same way that you would avoid the wrong lyric or the wrong color of paint or what have you. And you keep adjusting and you keep refining, except life doesn't wait around in the same way that ideas do. And unfortunately, modern systems don't reward depth. They reward decisiveness. It's just pick a lane, do a thing, repeat it, and don't think too hard about it. But if your brain is built to see multiple solutions to one problem, then that environment feels kind of insane. It's like being in a room where everyone seems to agree that the answer is obvious, but you're kind of just sitting there like, obvious to who? What about this? What about that? So you survive by turning everything into a form of self-expression, even basic tasks, even jobs. And it's not because you're trying to be special. It's because meaning is how you stay oriented. And without it, it can really feel like you're just moving your body through space and then someday you'll die, which is a tough pitch. Here's where people get stuck, because it's super useful to know yourself, no matter who you are, what kind of person you are. And it's practically useful in the way that it helps you make decisions. You're not making decisions in a way to like meet the expectations of other people, and it's not coming from a place of insecurity. It doesn't mean the insecurity is gone, it's just not, driving the car. But knowing yourself doesn't just kind of automatically tell you what to do, it just kind of tells you what not to do. It sharpens this sense of like misalignment. And it's super useful until you realize how much of adult life is pretty neutral. It's not aligned, it's not unaligned, it's just necessary. Think like taxes, laundry, emails. These things don't respond to your personality. They don't care if you're deep. They don't care if you're living in truth. And artists tend to experience this as being a lot more painful than it objectively is, because it's not just a task. Like it kind of feels like an insult. Like the world is just telling you to do this meaningless thing forever. So what do artists do? They reframe. They take the boring thing and they make it mean something. Not because they're dramatic, but because meaning restores a sense of agency. It's a feeling you might have spent your whole life becoming intimately familiar with. Where you make something, you bring an idea into the world, and it goes from being in your head to all of a sudden it's right here, and you can say, I made that. Because there's just a big difference between I have to do this and I choose to take responsibility for this. One feels like a punishment, while the other kind of feels like something you can take some pride in. One is like erosion, and the other one's like ownership. So if you've ever caught yourself turning basic adult maintenance into philosophy, you weren't being ridiculous, you were staying coherent. Here's the last distinction, and this one matters. Orientation is not motion. Orientation is understanding. It's seeing clearly and mapping the terrain. Motion is just choosing a direction anyway. And artists are excellent at orientation. They can tell you why something feels wrong. They can name the hidden tension in the room, and they can locate the emotional truth. But motion is will, and will doesn't require perfect alignment. It requires certainty, and it requires choice. So while orientation is telling you where you are, motion says, okay, I'm gonna go this way now, even if you're not completely sure. So if introspection helped you survive, it doesn't mean it automatically knows how to move you forward. It kept you coherent, but coherence isn't momentum. And if you felt like stuck or slow or late, it's not because you're lazy, but it might be because your best tool became a break. So I think in the next video we might talk about what to do with that, like without betraying yourself or waiting for clarity.